All right, hello listeners. Hello there, dear murderers. Today we're diving into the mysterious world of the missing 411. Ever heard of people vanishing without a trace in our national parks? Stick around because we're about to uncover some truly baffling cases.
There is a medicine story that tells of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is dead Crow now. Join us as we attempt to look through the wandering crow's eye to find the gateway to the supernatural, to seek to know the unknowable mysteries of creation. Welcome to the Wandering Crow Podcast.
That was great.
That was good.
Yeah,
I liked it.
That was really good. That was perfect. Very, very good. Okay.
So, what is the missing 411?
I don't know, Cameron, you want to take it away?
It's a concept developed by David Paulides.
Yeah, I don't know. JT, do you know how do we pronounce this name here?
Either it's Paulides or Paulides.
I want to say Paulides, but I don't know that that's correct.
Could be.
I have
I'm
no
not.
idea.
I'm not 100%. I heard it, but not 100%.
Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides.
And JT, you told me a little bit of his background. If you want to go there.
He is a certified private investigator, which is what has given him some access to some of the like deeper records that he's listed in these books.
And I also thought it was interesting that he's a former cop, so he does have like network of people that he trusts.
Not just a cop, but I think he was a detective, so he knows how to dig into cases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he started going into this, is because they weren't digging into these cases. Like there were some that weren't even like recorded, but they were obviously missing people. People missed them and wanted to get to the truth, but it was never really like, oh, they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, here, do you want to hear this? This is his introduction. He wrote this. These are his words. I was originally led to this story by an off-duty ranger at a national park I was visiting. They informed me of a series of missing person cases at the parks that were not getting any visibility in the press. So just like you said, Cameron. And they felt that there might be a series of similar cases at other parks. That one meeting set me on a 3-year study of the missing people topic, which led at this time to two books highlighting 411 stories. Now he's got like easily half a dozen, I think close to 10. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He says the most interesting and fascinating portion of this study on missing people is the discovery of clusters of missing in various areas of North America. The clusters were identified after years of research and hours spent while I studied maps. The following are the clusters that were identified in the eastern section of the United States. So I have the eastern one. I ordered eastern, western, and one called off the grid, and I never got western. Like that one, I guess they needed to print it, and I'm waiting on them to print it. So
what I love about this one is that it's not a theory. It's a collection of cases that just have weird similarities, and it's just unexplainable.
Yeah. That's
like there's no like, oh, maybe there's people missing. Oh no, there's people missing. There are people missing under strange circumstances, and nobody can really explain what's going on here.
So
even when they reappear.
To start, I'd like to throw out some statistics.
Okay.
This is from the National Missing and Unidentified Persons Database, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Justice. Every year, there are approximately 600,000 people that go missing. There are
around the world?
In the United States.
Wow. Okay.
There are approximately 4,400 unidentified bodies that are recovered each year. And so there are roughly 6.5 missing persons for every 100,000 people. Now, luckily, a very large portion of these cases are solved every year. Like in 2021, they had 521,000 cases solved. Like they found the people, it was fairly easy to close those out. If you go onto their website, they usually have an active, how many they have active, how many they've solved so far this year. and have those statistics.
See, though, you say that they were found, but here's something too: is that a lot of these bodies that were found to these missing 411 cases are found in impossible places
Right.
they should never have been. How do they get there?
Right.
So even when they're found, it's still like there's an air of mystery to it.
And I'm just trying to quantify like how many missing
Right,
persons
right.
there are every year. And so, you know, the amount of missing cases that he's talking about, you know, I think he's got approximately, or it was a couple of years ago, there was about, 1,400 cases, 1,400 cases that he was talking about. And that was a couple of years ago. And I'm sure he's added that on more now,
Right.
but
I think it's also important to point out it's not 1,400 cases per year.
no,
In total.
that he's
Going-
highlighting.
Right. So I think that I'm so glad you brought that up, JT, because this is another one of those things where, at least for myself personally, I think most missing person cases are pretty like mundane,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. Nothing paranormal happens.
Horrible, but mundane. Yeah.
Exactly. Horrible but mundane. He has picked out a very, very, very small percentage of cases that follow the same, what does he call them, data points? That to him are very unusual. And I think that that's important to point out. He's not saying every single person who goes missing in a national park fits his criteria of what makes a missing 411.
Right.
It's only some of them. And I think it's, when you think about it in those terms, it helps with kind of the credibility, at least for me.
Yeah, there's some realism. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like how I feel about aliens. Most of the time a light in the sky is probably going to be something totally explainable, but every now and then, you've got something you can't explain.
So I have a quick question.
Sure.
I came across something, and I came across it this morning. And have you guys heard about the Alaska Triangle?
Yes. I have.
Yes.
Okay. You've heard about that.
I don't know a lot about it, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, JT, if you got anything, yeah, let's hear it.
So, just some quick statistics. So the Alaska Triangle goes from Juneau, Alaska to Anchorage, and then it goes north to, I learned how to say this, Utikavik on the north end of Alaska. It's almost due north from Anchorage, and then back to Juneau. So there's that area, and it spans pretty much. It's maybe like a fifth of the entire state. Which is still quite a large area. But
Yeah.
in that area alone, since 1988, over 16,000 people, comprising of hikers, tourists, airplane passengers, and local, have gone missing within that area.
What?
That's the statistics I'm reading about the Alaska Triangle. It gained its
So 46 years, right?
Yeah,
So
since
16,000?
16,000 people since 1988.
Okay. So
That's not that far back.
No.
300 and just
A
about
40-year span,
350 people per year
Yeah.
on average. Dude, that's crazy.
So
that's a lot.
The rate of disappearance per 1,000 individuals is over twice the national average, just in this area alone.
Wasn't there that movie with Mila Jokovic and that took place up there?
Which one? What movie?
Okay, hold on. Let me find it.
I know there was one about a serial
Yeah.
killer up there, which was based on true events.
Fourth Kind. The Fourth Kind.
Okay.
That one was like documentary style, loosely based off of true events, dramatized. But then they also included like real footage of people that went missing, strange occurrences up in Alaska. What town was that? Nome, Alaska.
Oh, that's crazy.
Nome, Alaska is kind of on the western edge of Alaska and is a major place where people gold mined out in the ocean.
Oh.
There's actually a series on Discovery about gold mining in Nome, Alaska, where people have dredges and they actually dredge in the ocean. People will dive and have suction dredges where they go to the bottom and they suck up the rock and stuff and get gold. And there's guys that have barges, huge barges with big backhoes on them that actually dig the ocean floor and get gold there in Nome, Alaska.
Dude, that's crazy.
It is kind of if you think about what, we hear of all the gold mining that happened in Arizona, California, the gold rush, how dangerous of time it was. That's kind of the modern area of gold rush is in Nome, Alaska.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's way outside of the triangle.
It is. It's way outside of the triangle. There's another famous incident. I don't know if you guys have heard this. I hadn't heard this before. But in 1986, there was a Japanese cargo flight. And according to the report from Japan Airlines, it was Flight 1628. They encountered 3 unidentified flying objects above the region. The pilot initially assumed the crafts were military and ignored them, but before long he realized that the objects were keeping pace and moving predictably around his own aircraft for about 50 minutes.
Oh my God.
These strange crafts followed the flight while emitting bursts of light. And the statements provided by the crew were corroborated by civilian and military radar, and the FAA reported when the FAA reported it gained national attention.
Good
Are we talking like Foo Fighters or something different?
This is just up in that triangle area. There was UAPs flying around, and this was back in 1986. So,
because that definitely reminds me of World War II when those pilots saw the Foo Fighters, which is where they got their name, that band.
Oh, okay.
The Foo Fighters were described just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then planes would go missing and then reappear later somewhere else.
That's so crazy. So, real quick, I just realized we didn't do the things that we said we were going to do, housekeeping-wise.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
First of all, let's introduce JT, because this is his very first episode as officially a member of the podcast. Welcome, JT.
Thank
We're
you very
so
much.
happy to have you.
Welcome.
We're so excited that you're here. And then...
It's so natural,
Yeah.
I didn't even think to introduce him.
Nope, but we probably should do that. And then the other thing that we need to talk about is, dear murderers, we are working really hard to make this our sole occupation. But to do that, we need your help. So if we want to do this full time or do this more so we can release more content than once every 2 weeks, then we would love it if you could rate our show. Whatever your platform is, whatever you're doing, give us a rating. Give us a 5-star rating if you think we deserve it. And tell the world why you think we deserve that rating. It's really going to help us in our algorithm, and it's really going to help us get more listeners. And once we've got that, we can start doing some things to help kind of monetize a little bit. That will allow us to be more dedicated to this podcast. So I just help us help you. If you like the content and you want more, please help us out. Give us a good review. We also, Cameron's working on the website. We've made a lot of progress on that. It's looking pretty cool. We've got
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We've got a Facebook group.
Some roadblocks.
Well, you know.
Yeah. Facebook group. Very
Facebook
good.
group. The reason I don't do the website, I won't, because it's so obnoxious. I really hate website design. I can't stand it. It's
Yeah.
so monotonous. And then
I've learned.
Yeah, well.
I'll get there, but
Go for it.
I'm going to do it. But holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, we have an Instagram account. And so we're trying to increase our engagement and get ourselves out there. And we are slowly sort of working on the idea of a YouTube channel. We're definitely going to do that. I'm just not 100% sure what the visual part of that's going to be, and that's something that the three of us can talk about.
Yeah.
I kind of think that for the length of our videos, we're going to be played primarily at nighttime. So it doesn't necessarily matter. It just needs to be dark.
Yeah. Maybe you can help me do something with that. But anyway, that's the housekeeping done.
Excellent.
Now we can go back to the subject.
So what I'll do is I do have like a visual like map of the triangle in Alaska, and I'll upload that to the Facebook group and the Instagram account.
Yes, please.
So people can kind of
That'd
see,
be cool.
and I'll link the article that I found about it that talks about it more, because kind of what gave this triangle notoriety is back in 1972, a lovely year. That was the year I was born. The
yes.
U.S. House Majority Leader Hale Boggs disappeared while flying in a private plane between Juneau and Anchorage. So that
What?
made this, a lot more famous. Now, I do have to quantify some things with this triangle. That is very remote area. There's lots of glaciers. There's lots of areas for people to just disappear there.
Very mountainous.
Very
yeah.
mountainous.
Nice.
Glaciers in and of themselves have fissures that you could fall, and you could fall hundreds of feet and never be found.
Yeah, you'd be walking on what you think is solid ground, and it just drops out right from
Yes.
underneath you.
Yes.
And glaciers are still moving, right?
Yes.
Or are they not?
They are.
So
They're
from one
constantly
moment to the
Couple
next,
inches every year.
yeah, you could be in one spot, and then by next year in a totally different spot, which I think would make it harder for people to find you.
So here's how they describe it. The area is known for its rugged and unforgiving wilderness, featuring dense boreal forests, craggy mountain peaks, alpine lakes, and vast stretches of wilderness. So in and of that too, it's a very remote area, and not a lot of people go in that area. So you have a lot of wildlife that exists in the area as well.
And help me clarify, how did you end up in this Alaska Triangle rabbit hole from Missing 411?
So I was researching the story that you guys have already talked about, the little boy that was up at a lake in Utah.
Garrett Bardsley?
Garrett Bardsley. And I was kind of reading that story and reading that, and I came across this story on the same website that I was looking at, and that's how I found it.
Listeners, the Garrett Bardsley story, we first talked about it in connection with Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
When we were trying to figure out, is it just cows that are subject to whatever, or do people potentially maybe go missing up there too? And we found Mr. Garrett Bardsley.
Yeah.
Did you want to retell the story, JT?
No, we can. We already
okay.
told that in the last podcast. We don't need to. It's an
Okay.
eerie situation. Well, just a quick recap for those that have not heard it. A boy and his father, they were fishing. They were in a scout group. They were about 200 feet away from the campsite, and this boy was 12, and
he was 12.
He got his pants and shoes and socks wet and wanted to go change them, and his father was like, "Oh, okay, well, that's not that far away." And he said, "Okay, you can go." And he went back to the campsite and ended up disappearing. And all they found from him, I think it was a mile away. Was it a mile away? They found one of his wet socks. And that's all they.
It was in like a craggy,
Yeah, it was in a
rocky area.
craggy, rocky area, and that's all they found of him. And he went missing fairly quickly, and it was just in a span of a couple hundred feet from where he was fishing to where the campsite was, and it's not like you couldn't necessarily see the campsite either. So, just an odd, one of the more odd, disturbing missing persons that comes out of some of these missing cases.
And for any of our non-American listeners, 200 feet is less than 61 meters.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very small distance. So one thing about that, so maybe we should talk about these points. What are his data points? So the Garrett Bardsley story is considered a missing 411 story.
Yes.
Where's my data points here? Here we go. It occurred in a rural setting. And as far as David Paulides is concerned, all of the missing people that he has included in his missing 411 disappeared in a very rural setting. It's not a city, not a downtown location. There's usually no witnesses, and there's usually like a lot of cover and difficult terrain. He includes dogs. He says for some reason, dogs often play a major role in the disappearances, at least for the eastern United States, especially the cases that involve children. This is the one that I think is the most fantastical. Bloodhounds / canines cannot track the scent. And that happened in Garrett Bardsley's case. He literally would have been just a few feet away from his dad, and hounds could not pick up the scent in trying to track him. He was just gone. Like he'd been sucked up and taken away without ever touching the ground again. And that's something that happens a lot in the missing 411 cases. He says oftentimes the missing are either disabled or maybe slightly impaired. So sometimes they're hard of hearing, sometimes they're full on deaf, sometimes they're autistic, sometimes they're elderly and they have, they've got some physical weakness or other disability. So he says that a really high percentage kind of fit into that category.
Which, easy target for predators, but
Yep.
I mean, they couldn't get to where they're going. Like, for instance, here's one, James McGoran. He was found 4.5 miles from where he was last seen in the opposite direction of where he was heading.
How old was he?
This one was actually able-bodied.
Oh. How old was this guy?
Yeah, he was 39 years old.
Able-bodied. So...
And he was an ER doctor that frequently hiked with his buddies. And he was in Vail, and he heads up with a group, and then he just vanishes, just like that.
Oh.
And they searched for him for days, and it was 3 weeks later that they found him 4.5 miles away.
That's crazy.
In the opposite direction. So, you have these people that can't do that. They couldn't possibly go these distances, but they're found all these miles away. And oftentimes unharmed, like untouched.
Mm-hmm. So, where is that? That's one of his data points. The missing is found in an area previously searched. He says another common factor found in many search and rescue missions. Searchers find the missing person and later are adamant that the area in which the person was found had already been searched thoroughly numerous times. And sometimes the missing person is found on a major trail that searchers had used daily. SAR commanders are sometimes mystified by the victim's location when found.
2013, Geraldine Largay. They were searching for her, and she was in the Appalachian Trail, and she vanished into thin air. She was last seen July 22nd, 2013, and she texted her husband saying she was lost, and then she was just never heard from again. But her remains were found 2 years later, just a quarter mile from the trail, in a place they had already searched.
No. Dude.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few more data points. Fever. He says, I've had discussions with physicians about the children who return from being missing who have fevers. When they're examined, physicians noted in the articles that they couldn't find a reason for the fever, and the physicians I spoke with couldn't explain it. Only a handful of these incidents were described in articles, and I believe children returning with fevers had occurred many more times than what was actually noted. The condition wasn't told to the media, and it was handled as a normal medical anomaly.
Wow.
And I have notes about that. Conscious or semi-conscious, one of the most unusual conditions found among missing people is being found in either a conscious or semi-conscious state. I understand that when people go missing for extended periods, hallucinations can occur because of an absence of food and water, but these conditions are prevalent even when those factors do not exist. It says you will read about cases in which the missing are found unconscious, lying on the ground. When questioned later, they have no recollection of how they came to be missing. In some cases, the missing person does not recall the facts surrounding his or her disappearance. a lot of times, kidnapping. In several incidents, law enforcement officials believed that the victim had been kidnapped. In many of the cases, the people returned in fairly clean clothes, and even though there was a heavy precipitation, they were dry. The truly astonishing factor is that in many cases, there was no shelter found, and it couldn't be explained why the victim was dry. And in those cases, when they use the word kidnap, law enforcement usually will back off their position without explaining why. They'll start real strong, we think this person was kidnapped, and then they'll sort of back off, and well, they're missing, and we don't know what happened to them. The disappearances usually occur in the afternoon. They usually occur near swamps and briar patches, and a lot of times have something to do with like berry picking, or berries will feature in the story of the person who's found. And this is an interesting one. Clothing is removed. In numerous cases cited, the missing person is found, and at least one significant piece of clothing has disappeared. Sometimes people are found inexplicably naked. This may sound...
I have a little explanation about that real quick, if you will.
Cool, go for it, yeah.
Have you heard of paradoxical undressing?
Yes.
Yes, I was about to say that. Yep.
That is a phenomenon that was actually... from 33 cases of hypothermia collected from Swedish police reports. It doesn't matter the sex, the age, the geographical descriptions. Pretty much when you get hypothermia, people just decide to take their clothes off.
Mm-hmm. I was curious about that because I wanted to know, this paradoxical undressing is used a lot as an explanation for why clothes are removed. You know, it happens in hypothermia. The brain gets tricked into thinking that it's not just not cold anymore, but also like boiling hot. And so these people in a state of confusion will take off their clothes. But like, how did we determine that as being scientific fact? Like, where did we do the studies? Where, you know, does this happen all over the place, or is it just in these missing persons cases that are really weird? And so I did dig.
Well, there was the Russian hikers.
The Dilatov
that
Pass?
was like, yes.
Yep.
That one.
That's a very famous one.
So let me...
Yeah, that was where I first heard of it.
Let me just quantify this study. So the term came from these, Swedish police reports and these cases they had. So the cases were evenly distributed with regards to sex, age, and geographical distribution. The cases occurred more frequently in open land, although cases from town areas were also found. So most of the cases were out in the wilderness. And most of these instances were recorded from November to February.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
Most of the cases that David researched were either in the spring or the fall, weren't they?
I don't know. I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that.
So there was...
I'm sure there's
a note here for
all different...
Yeah, there's a couple of outliers. Yeah, there's a few that were snowstorm missings, but...
let's see, what else?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to read another part. Some of the people that were in this case study, had drugs in their system. Or ethanol in their bloodstream. So their blood alcohol was high, or there was some sort of drugs or something like that in some of these cases. So
when I looked, it did for me kind of put to rest the question of whether or not this is something that we're just making up to explain these, or if this is a real phenomena that occurs all over. I found several cases in which it happened in cities, like in very crowded, busy cities, where like one of them, an elderly lady went missing, and they later found her in a fetal position in her own crawl space outside of her house, and she had undressed herself, and they think what happened was she didn't have electricity during the coldest part of the winter, apparently, and she entered into this paradoxical undressing of the hypothermia. Like, she got hypothermic, she got confused, she went outside, took off all her clothes, and then crawled into this crawl space and just fell asleep and never woke up again. And I found several studies like that occurred in very crowded places, which I think what I was trying to rule out is that these only occur in the woods and that they only occur under very mysterious circumstances that don't make a lot of sense, but they don't. They occur all over the place. So that helped me.
Well, something that I have learned in my life as someone who's done a lot of camping, when I go camping, I don't sleep in my clothes. I get in my sleeping bag and then I take off my clothes and I'm just in my underwear so I can sleep, because when you're wearing your clothes and you're out, even in the middle of winter, moisture gets in your clothes. And that can actually keep you colder than if you actually take off your clothes and get in your, and are in your sleeping bag. So that's always been something that I do no matter where I go. If it's going to be a little bit colder, I'll take a sheet with me to put in the sleeping bag with me, or a blanket or something to have as extra protection from cold. But I always, remove my clothes. Now, of course, when I wake up in the morning, I get very cold when I have to put my clothes back on. But it's just something that I do, something that I've learned. So I don't know if that has anything to do with what we're talking about here with the paradoxical undressing, but
Maybe.
it's just something that I've learned to use to avoid staying cold at night or getting hypothermia at night, is just that. And we all know that if you want to get warmer, if you have somebody that does have hypothermia, you do remove their clothes to try to warm them up, because more skin-to-skin contact actually warms them up faster.
That's true. Okay. Well, very cool. And that's it for his data points that he uses to kind of determine, is this a missing 411 case, or is this, a mundane missing persons case?
So without interruption, you should probably just go through the list, like 1, 2, 3 type of thing.
Okay. Here we go. Ready? Let me get it to the page. It's in a rural setting. Dogs are usually factored in the disappearance somehow. Bloodhounds and canines can't track the scent. The victim is usually disabled or impaired, or has some level of impairment. When they're found, they often have fevers that can't be explained. When they're found, they're either conscious or semi-conscious. Oftentimes, the disappearances are initially attributed to kidnappings, which are then later, that statement is then later retracted for unknown reasons. Disappearances occur in the afternoon, between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. usually. They're usually near water, or has something to do with a body of water. Oftentimes, they're either picking berries, or there's some berries factor into the survivor's account somehow. Clothing is often removed. And when the missing person is found, they're usually found in an area that had previously been searched many times by a search and rescue team. So, one thing I wanted to say, in these books, David Paulides never asserts what he thinks it is. Like, he never produces any kind of explanation that he's leaning towards. I can tell from his website that he's a really big Bigfoot believer, but at least in this book, he never at any point said, I think this is what happened. Now, he presents facts and he asks questions, and he asks you to reach your own conclusions, which I think is really interesting.
Well, yeah. The second you introduce your own theory, well, it becomes a theory instead of this is a real thing that happens. So I think he just didn't want to take away from that. These people are missing.
I also think that's an aspect of a good detective. You don't create your own theory and try to suit the facts to fit your theory. You just collect the facts without a theory and let the facts tell you what's going on without creating your own narrative. He does say, he says, as you read about these incidents, I want everyone to apply his or her own level of common sense to what is explained. Ask yourself these questions. Could my child have accomplished what the child in the article allegedly did? Either walked this far, survived in this environment, etc. Would my child, or relative, ever do what the child in the article did? Does this story even make sense? Does it seem like someone is trying to manipulate the story? Does there seem to be a consistency in the stories? Could these events be related to one another? Those are the questions he asks. Otherwise, this book that I have, I'm looking at the Eastern United States, is just cover to cover accounts of missing persons that fit his missing 411. There is no editorializing, just the accounts, just the facts, which I think is astounding.
A lot of restraint.
Yeah.
So Mandy gave me a book to read. I have Off the Grid. And in reading some of those, they're very short, but he also does put in theories from the police reports, what the police think happened to them.
I like that. That's cool. Do you have one that you wanted to read?
I do. This is a very strange one. This is about an 11-year-old boy from Danville, Illinois, who was missing for 5 hours and traveled over 100 miles.
Nope. I'm already in love. Keep reading, please.
Okay, so...
Oh, my God.
He traveled barefoot. He did not know how he got to where he was. So this was April 28th, 1987.
Springtime in
He
Illinois.
went to bed at 10 p.m.
Where? Like in his house,
in
or
his
was
house.
he camping?
In his house.
Oh.
In Danville, Illinois. It's on the Indiana border with the Wabash River going through the center of the community. Danville also has Lake Vermilion on its northwest border and the Kickapoo State Recreation Area to its west. The victim in this case lived at 529 East Madison Street in Danville. And it's a residence that sits close to two notable landmarks. Stone Creek is behind the residence and empties into the Wabash River. And the city railroad yard sits on the opposite side of the creek. So, something to say about this boy is he was a sleepwalker.
Okay.
So I think he was discovered missing at 2:45 a.m. on the 29th. And then he was discovered, where was he discovered? He was discovered near walking along railroad tracks near Peru, Indiana, early Tuesday, the next day. He was barefoot. He had a shirt and pants on, and he didn't know where he was or how he got there. So there's theories from the police that because there was a railroad yard close by, that he went and got in a boxcar and traveled in a train and got out of the boxcar and just didn't realize that the entire time he was asleep.
That's where my head went. Okay.
So that's kind of the narrative that people said. Sleep Boy found 100 miles from his bed. I guess it is plausible that a railroad car could go 100 miles in 5 hours. But that would really have to be, the circumstances would have to work out quite perfect for him to travel that far barefoot and asleep.
Safely.
Mm-hmm.
Just,
And where he was found, was it near another train station? Do we have any of those details?
no. I don't have that. He was just walking along the railroad tracks in Peru.
Oh.
In Peru. Peru, Indiana. Did I say Illinois? Peru, Indiana.
No, you said Indiana the
Okay,
first time, I
did.
think.
Good.
So that's where they didn't find him at a train station. He was actively just walking.
He was
following
walking
tracks.
along the railroad tracks.
Did he have any bruising or any other signs of any kind of trauma?
No, he was not wearing a coat. It was very chilly out. It was about 45 degrees during the night, during that time of the year. But the crazy thing is he has no recollection of how we got there.
That's nuts.
He was disoriented. I'm sure you would be if you all of a sudden are somewhere and you don't know how you got there. So they really can't say. He really couldn't say how he got there or what he did or anything like that. The only notable thing is that he was a sleepwalker. So, but I found that just very interesting. So in this book, Missing 411 Off the Grid, that is the largest distance someone traveled, and it was a short period of time. And I just find that kind of fascinating.
Yeah. What do you think, Cameron?
This one, I think they might be onto something, except that there was no bruising. So, did the train stop?
And he walked out. Like, I would think maybe he, like, rolled out. Like, he fell out and rolled out. But he would have bruises. He'd have some sort of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
That
He would have woken up from that.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I would think.
So.
That's crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a weird one for sure. And that's plausible, but there's too many things that could go wrong. That would make that kid like the luckiest kid to still be alive.
Right. But it was only 5 hours.
Oh yeah, but if it's a moving train and he's sleepwalking, they're lucky they didn't find him cut in half.
I know.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I have a weird one. And this is in his Michigan cluster. Her name was Katie Flynn. She went missing in the summer of 1868 in Walhalla, Michigan. Her age at the time of her disappearance was 3 years. So Mr. Henry Flynn ran a lumber camp in the forest just outside of Walhalla. During the summer months, his wife and his daughter Katie would come from the city to stay with him. Part of his job was to drive a team of horses carrying the lumber up the hill to the mill, drop the load, and then come back to get additional trees. During June of 1868, Henry would have Katie ride the horse on the way up the hill, and then she would dismount at the top of the hill and run back down on an adjacent trail. On one of these trips back down the hill, Katie didn't actually make it back. Mom thought she was with Dad. Dad thought that she was with Mom. When he returned home at the end of the night and learned that she had never returned, they immediately started a search. Henry checked the path that she was taking and saw her tracks slowly merge with the path of a huge black bear. As luck would come Mr. Flynn's way, 2 hunters wandered into camp and offered to assist with the search for their daughter. They scoured the area with the aid of torches made of wood shingles. And the search for Katie went into the early morning hours, and they ended up giving up for that night. Early the next morning, Mr. Flynn and a group of searchers went back out looking for Katie. At about 4 p.m., the men heard a, quote, feeble cry in dense underbrush. The men started to make their way through the brush toward the river when they heard another faint cry. Just before the men reached the river, the article stated that the men saw a huge black bear jump into the river and disappear across the other side. Katie was found standing on a tree that was lying on the ground and crossing the water flow. The girl was picked up and taken back to camp. She had a badly scratched face and hands, but that was about it for her injuries. When she got back to camp, Mrs. Flynn asked her why she didn't run away when she had the opportunity. And this was actually publicized in the Ludington Daily in April 24th, 1932. Here's Katie's response.
Big Dog came up to me, took me in his arms, and walked away with me.
Noting one of her shoes was missing, the parents asked her where it was. She says,
Big Dog ate it.
It was again reprinted in 1961. In this copy of the story, it had the following as to Katie's rendition of the events. In answer to questions, the child said that after her father had left, she had played a little while in the sand when a big black thing came along and played with her. Then it held out its paw, and she caught hold of it, and it walked away with her. Just before dark, it had left her for a while, and when it came back, its paw was full of wintergreen berries. The bear ate some of the berries, and she ate some. Then it scraped a big pile of leaves close to her and lay down close to her, and during the night had tried to cover her with its own body. I think his thing is that initially, she said a big black thing. She is not even a person who said dog or bear. She said a big black thing, implying that she doesn't for sure know exactly what it was, and maybe later settled on dog or bear because it made the most sense. He says the explanation about the mammal making a bedding area, covering her, and keeping her warm is not indicative of bear behavior. Bears are not nurturing, warm creatures that cuddle children. And then he says, and then there was the berries. In other stories that were printed, it says that a wolf took her he also says, well, that can't be true because a wolf can't pick berries and deliver them to her in its paw. So it was just really interesting for him. And then he kind of talks about another story that's very similar about a guy named Millard Davis, who also says that she was taken by a big bear and slept with that bear through the night. And that was in 1888. So what he says, he recaps it. Something took Katie against her will. Searchers saw something dark and hairy jump into the river as they approached. Most felt it was a bear, except the victim herself. Bears do not take little girls, coddle them all night, and carry them in their arms. So that's that particular.
The wolf wouldn't carry her in its arms either.
No. No.
It would be very difficult for a bear to carry somebody in their arms as well. Because they do walk on all fours. Yeah, they can stand up, but
they don't walk
they
on
don't
two.
walk on two. They come back down and walk on all fours.
So that's an interesting one. And that's about as close as he ever gets to making any kind of claim. I mean, he asked a lot of questions, and he cited a lot of different stories and kind of implies, I think, in that story that it was something, maybe Bigfoot. I think he implies that, but he never actually explicitly says that. I don't know if you were falling asleep there, JT, or your face looked...
It's just interesting to me. I don't know. Just...
Here's another one that's really interesting. 48. I call this one the bear that was later a wolf. So a 2-year-old disappears. They lived in a really rural area. He's in his own yard. She was doing some housework. She put him in the yard to play. And when she came back to see, quote, a horrifying event unfold in front of her. So it was described that Mrs. Herman Bilgren was horrified on emerging from her home to see a huge black bear making for the woods with her child. Helpless from fright, her hysterical cries attracted the attention of a neighbor's daughter who was passing the Bilgren residence, and she immediately gave chase to the bear. Following the bear for about 3 blocks, on encountering a wire fence, the bear dropped his burden and disappeared in the forest. The boy was found to be fine without injury. 5 days later, Miss Bilgren changes her story. She says, Mrs. Bilgren, coming out of the house, suddenly to look after her child, was horrified to see a large, dark animal, which she thinks was a wolf, carrying her baby off to the woods. So 5 days later, she's changed her story. And what's interesting is, let's say if it was a bear, it's not part of bear behavior to carry its prey off, to carry its kill off. They usually take the snack right there, as far as we know about bear behavior. And so it's interesting. I think they tried to change it to wolf to make the facts fit the case, because a wolf might carry off a small child with its mouth. But I think it's hard to confuse a bear with a wolf, I would think.
Well, yeah.
Black bears, I'm pretty sure, will keep their prey alive, even while they're eating it.
But do they carry it off and eat it somewhere else?
Carry is a bit of a strong word. Drag is more like it.
Yeah, I would say drag.
Because they still walk on all fours, yeah.
How far would they drag it?
I don't know. Like, not that far. But, like, there was a lady that was found to be still alive after a bear had been munching on her. And it covered her with, like, leaves and bushes and things.
Yeah. Because
it was trying to keep her warm so that way she would stay alive longer and keep the meat fresh. And it would come back and eat her. But she was found, and that was kind of how they explained away why it covered her up. Was A, to keep other predators away, and B, to keep her alive a little bit longer.
That's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bears are not Pooh Bear.
No.
I've heard of stories, as a Boy Scout, you hear stories, and there was a Boy Scout that was at a scout camp up in Flagstaff, and Flagstaff, there's a lot of black bears. And
really?
When you're at the scout camp, you're not allowed to have food in your tent,
right?
Because of bears. And they have to be locked up or put in a airtight container. But a boy had some licorice in his tent, and it was, they were woken up in the middle of the night to screams, and this boy was being drug out of the tent while he was still in his sleeping bag, because that's where the licorice was, and that's what the bear wanted. Fortunately, they were able to scare the bear off, but that's what the bear was smelling and looking for. But yeah, they'll drag people away. They won't necessarily carry them away. I don't know that. I don't know. Trying to walk on all fours and carry something is difficult, but dragging when you walk on all fours is a lot easier. So, just weird, interesting stories. But for her to switch from a bear to a wolf.
That's a
Well,
little...
did she do that, or did the investigators do that?
She apparently did that, but it's not directly from her. Where did I put that story? 48. These were publicized. So in the Daily News, it was described that she said she saw a big bear. 5 days later, in the Marshfield Times, a different newspaper, it says that she said she saw what she thought was a wolf. Something big and black. A big dark animal, which she thought was a wolf.
So
How about it? Do you think she knows what she saw and she's just
No.
doesn't want to sound crazy?
Maybe. That's an interesting question. Did she know what she saw and was unwilling to actually say, yeah, I saw a hairy man-ape taking my kid? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
So I found research on a skeptic. This guy's name is Kyle Pollock, and he has a website called Data Skeptics. And so he kind of runs data. So he found David Paulides and did some kind of skeptic work on him. And I wasn't real impressed with his skeptic work because he basically all he did was take a sampling of one of his books and took 5 stories and then read those stories and said, well, there's really nothing interesting in those stories. I guess he's taken the time to read and listen to a lot of his YouTube and stuff, but for what I saw, he was at a little conference back in 2017 where he was talking about this and trying to throw the skeptical side of things. And he threw out a term that I thought was interesting. It's called pseudo-woo. Have either of you heard of that term?
I can guess what it might be. Tell me about it.
His definition of pseudo-woo, a statement or idea which avoids direct claims but lives in the milieu of conspiracy theories and sets an implication or template from which one might infer paranormal, mysterious, extraterrestrial, conspiracy, or other nefarious underpinning.
Okay.
That's his.
So exactly what we do.
That's his term, pseudo-woo. But he said you can.
That sounds like a really nice way to minimize the strangeness of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I was really kind of trying to find more of his skepticism, more of his things. But of course, David here doesn't do any of that. He doesn't throw out any pseudo-woo. He doesn't throw out any theories of how these people are missing. He just presents.
I think that's exactly why he doesn't do that.
And he also says you can create your own pseudo-woo by making non-specific claims or no claims at all. So he's saying that he's not making any claims at all, so he's creating pseudo-woo by making no claims.
Okay, so anybody that presents evidence without making any claims is making pseudo-woo? Yes. I'm just going to argue against this for that.
I mean,
he is a heckler.
He's
a heckler
win
is what he is.
with that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you make a claim, oh, there it is, pseudo-woo. If you just present facts, oh, there it is, pseudo-woo. I don't like the way you presented those facts, sir.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
So, I found that
I
funny.
had one.
That's a good breakdown of them. I hadn't heard about that man. So, no. That is a heckler, and I don't respect his commentary.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
It's very disturbing.
And I saw that too. What's disturbing?
Well, because he presented kind of some of the stuff at a conference in 2017, and everybody in the little room they were in that were all skeptics were very cavalier, they laughed a lot at some of what he was saying, and you know, to me it was just they just dismissed it like it was crazy.
Mm-hmm. They had an agenda. It's almost, in a lot of these cases, it's not just that they're dismissive. There is like, it's an aggressive kind of...
It's willful.
Yes.
Willful, yeah.
I'm not just going to dismiss this for myself. I want everybody in the world to know that you're full of shit. But based on what? Based on their own personal opinions.
Yeah.
Like it's just ridiculous. I don't like that. That's gross.
It's denial of some kind. It's like a state of denial.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of...
No, this threatens my worldview, so therefore anything you say is wrong.
Exactly. I think a lot of people do that. You know, they can't just keep an open mind. No one's saying that this is something that happens all the time, but maybe it's possible, and people can't even accept the possibility. Here's one. So this one has a rebuttal to it I found on the internet, which I thought was actually very interesting. So Judy Rodenkall, she disappears from Auroraville, Wisconsin in 1956. She's 16 years old. It's considered a rural community with a large pond or lake. It's called Mill Pond, and a river. Much of the area is swampy and flat. So on October 30th, she's walking to the bus stop for her ride to school, and she never arrived at high school. She never returned home. Her parents realized that something bad had happened when her boyfriend arrived and was like, "Hey, I'm ready for my date." And they're like, "Wait, what? Isn't she with you?" And they realized, okay, something's bad here. Her boyfriend's here. No one's seen her. We don't know what's going on. It says the search was difficult because teams didn't understand where the girl might possibly be located. There were no leads until the next day when they were in a creek 1 mile north of her residence, and they found a handkerchief and Judy's socks. Her parents were able to confirm that they were hers. Bloodhounds were brought to search for the girl near the location, but they couldn't pick up a scent. Again, bloodhounds can't pick up a scent. They continued the search through Wednesday and Thursday without making any progress, and then Thursday night, a farmer by the name of Edgar Tim made a very unusual find. The girl of the nearby village of Auroraville was found unconscious Thursday night near the farm home of Edgar Tim, a mile north of the village. Judy had been missing nearly 60 hours at that point and had been the object of a concentrated search by police and volunteers. Authorities were baffled how she'd spent her time since she disappeared on Tuesday. There were some indications that she had possibly hid alone in a shack on the farm where she was found. And David Paulides asks the question, okay, so what was she hiding from? If she hid in the shack, what from? What was she hiding from? She was transported to a local hospital where physicians were puzzled by her condition. She was suffering from shock and exposure, and Paulides asks, shock from what? You know, why would she take her shoes and socks off on a cold November morning? Doctors said that they believed that Judy had had a, quote, blackout, and something we don't hear much about in 21st century. Other articles confirmed that she was barefoot but was otherwise fully clothed. It's interesting, he says, that almost all the articles indicated that she was, quote unquote, fully clothed, as though someone somewhere was expecting her to be missing clothing. Like, I think that they thought she was kidnapped and raped. She was released from the hospital several days after arriving. And again, she was found near a creek. So I was curious. I said, okay, well, she's 16 years old when this happened. No one says she doesn't have a story other than just that she quote unquote blacked out. So I wanted to see if I could like find her. So I looked her up on the internet. I think she's since then, that was in 1956. She has died since then. But this one guy, Michael D. Winkle, actually thinks it's possible she was the victim of a serial killer that was later discovered to have been operating in the area at the time. So he thinks, because there were several bodies that had gone missing and other things that were going on, that he thinks it was this serial killer. So he says Edward Theodore Gain, the quote-unquote Mad Butcher of Plainfield, was the quintessential American boogeyman. And he's kind of the basis for the Norman Bates Psycho, like how he kept like his mom's body and like had like a totally psychotic break. And so I guess this guy was the inspiration for that story. But, you know, the implication by this guy is, you know, maybe she was taken by him and for whatever reason he let her go because she wasn't technically his type. He liked young boys. So there is a speculation, you know, there were a series of people who went missing around that time, and a lot of them were able to be attributed to the serial killer who was operating at the time. So I thought that was kind of an interesting story, but there's no evidence. And apparently she never, ever had any clarity on what it was that had gone on.
You know, and that was something that the skeptic threw out. He's like, there's a possibility that some of these missing people, there are serial killers operating in these national parks. And
well, yeah, those are called manhunters. That's a thing. And even still, does that take away from the missing 411? Like, I don't think so. I just think that is one of the possible.
No, like that was the only positive thing he said about it, was like, if this can uncover some of these serial killers, that's a good thing.
Oh, well, yeah. That sounds reasonable.
It's like, don't take the data lightly, but look at the data for the data, is what he's saying. Mm-hmm. And that's all David Paulides is doing, is looking at the data. I have a couple of stories that are a little bit closer to home that I'd like to talk about. There are 3, and when you get your book on the Western United States, I think there's a story in there that goes along with these 2. These 2 disappearances happened within months of each other from the same campground.
Okay.
This was in the Chiricahua National Monument down in southeastern Arizona.
Okay.
It's really close to the border of New Mexico and Mexico. So there was so on June 18th, this is 2015, physician Eduardo Castrojan and his wife Lydia and their daughter Janet, they left their home in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and started driving their motorhome towards Chiricahua National Monument for their 3rd visit. The family stopped and spent the night in a church parking lot in Deming, and in the morning of September 19th, they headed for IHOP for breakfast. They arrived at the Rustlers Park campground in the Chiricahua at approximately 1:30 p.m. They found a campsite and set up their location. Approximately 4 p.m., Eduardo made quesadillas, beans, and rice for their late lunch. Lydia and Eduardo were protected of Janet because of a catastrophic injury she sustained in a 1988 car accident. So she had a major brain injury, and that made her partially blind. She was said to function as a 5-year-old, and so she needed constant care from her parents. So at 5 p.m., Lydia said she was going for a short walk. Janet went with her mom. The pair walked approximately 1,000 feet on a winding road through the camping area to a pay station where Janet deposited their envelope. Lydia said she needed to use the bathroom 300 feet farther up the road. Janet didn't need to go and wanted to walk back to the motorhome. And that was their point of separation. Lydia saw her daughter walking in the correct direction to meet Eduardo. Lydia arrived back at the motorhome and found Janet wasn't there. Eduardo said Janet had never come back. And Lydia and her husband started searching and calling Janet's name, but they never got a response. They never found anything out of place or her track on any established trails. The parents talked to other campers in the area and determined that nobody had seen anything relevant to their daughter. At 8 p.m., Eduardo called law enforcement to report his daughter as a missing person, but it wasn't until midnight that the first deputy arrived. By 12:30, that was about 12:30 a.m. By 12:30 a.m., a search had started and continued until to 6 a.m. On June 20th, a helicopter arrived and searched the park along with a series of SAR personnel, SAR search and rescue personnel. There was a 3-day search for Janet. On June 30th, 2015, edition of the Tucson News had these details. However, after scourging a several-mile radius of Rustler Park Campground, where she was last seen, search and rescue teams found nothing. No clothing, no signs of a struggle, not even Castor John's scent, despite the aid of multiple canines that were brought in over 3 days. The Castor Johns continued to search for her even after that. He searched well into October until the park closed, but Janet was never found. In September of the same year, Lawrence Cosden, 69 years old. Janet was 44 at the time. Lawrence Cosden, he was at the same campground. Let's see. So he left his residence from Tucson to spend 2 days camping in Chiricahua. He entered the park on September 13th and bought a pass good for 2 days. On September 17th, someone in Tucson reported Lawrence missing. Whoever reported him missing must not have known he was going to Chiricahua because either there wasn't an adequate search in the park, or law enforcement looked and couldn't locate his vehicle. On September 20th at 4:30 p.m., law enforcement received a call about what appeared to be an abandoned car in a campsite location in Rustler's Park. The vehicle, a 2015 Mazda, was later determined to be Lawrence Cosden's and was in the national computers as being associated with a missing person. Cochise County Sheriff deputies interviewed people in the Rustler's camp. They located a woman who remembered the man associated with Lawrence's car starting to hike a trail with his cat. She said she had seen the man several days earlier but didn't remember the exact date. The search for Lawrence started on September 21st and was terminated on September 23rd. The September 23rd, 2015 edition of the Tucson News now reported Carol Kappas, spokeswoman for Cochise County Sheriff's Office, said the search for the 69-year-old Lawrence Cosden was called off due to weather until this weekend. The sheriff utilized a helicopter, canines, ground teams to look for Lawrence. They found nothing. So he was reported missing on September 17th, but in reality, he went missing no later than September 14th. Now, something else notable
Yikes.
About this park is there was a National Park Service ranger that disappeared and was never found from this national monument. And that story...
What? When did that happen?
That story is in Missing 411 Western United States. So we'll have to revisit when you get that book. But that's three people in the same area, two of them, within months of each other, disappearing without a trace.
That's crazy.
I found that fascinating.
So what are
because I want to go to that national monument and check it out.
But do you? Like,
I know. That's a good question, Cameron.
I
do you
I
really?
do. I really do. I just won't go to that campground. Or maybe I will, and maybe I'll become one of these stories. Who knows? I just won't go hiking.
I hope you don't. Yeah. So, what are the options here? Like, what I was thinking about these stories, what are the options? Like, what possibly could be doing these things? What kind of predators do we have in North America? Well, we've got mountain lions, we've got bears, we've got wolves, we've got coyotes. Depending on where you're at, there's things like, oh, dang. Now I can't remember. Wolverines, things like that. But, how many of these actually will carry a grown person away? We've determined that a black bear might, at least for a short distance, carry a body away. I think a mountain lion, it is in their behavior to do so, but mountain lions aren't that big. So could they really take an adult human body and drag it for miles until it's ready to eat it without there being a scent? Would there not be something, some evidence, some blood, something?
That's the thing.
That's the thing, too, is they wouldn't carry it for miles. They would carry it, like, meters.
Yeah.
Somewhere secluded they could eat.
Yeah, secluded and safe-ish, so they can eat real quick.
And you would find something.
Something, right? And then I thought, okay, so mountain lions, totally believe it. I could see that working out for small children. 2 years old, 3 years old, all of these little babies that are disappearing. They're about the right size. A mountain lion could pick it up and carry it away. And we might maybe not have a scent of the kiddo, you know, because the mountain lion's got it in his mouth. They're small. Babies are little. But not for the adults. Not for these adult missing persons. And then, so then my next question is, okay, let's say that it's human. Let's say that there are serial killers. And the statistics are mixed, but it looks like, at least in the where is it? I lost it. According to Scientific American, there are between 25 to 50 serial killers in the United States now, killing about 150 people per year. There might actually be more, because serial killers don't usually advertise what they do.
Well, if you think about it, the statistic I threw out in the beginning, that they find 4,400 bodies a year unidentified.
Mm-hmm.
So...
yeah, that's true. What happened to them?
Exactly.
How did they die? So I guess my question then becomes, could a human person be that slick? Be that good to make off with another adult, to make off with a small child, and still evade a search and rescue team? Is that feasible in all of these cases? Would we not find
Would
some
they
evidence?
be that mentally coherent to be able to do those things?
A serial killer?
If they're living out in the middle of woods, yeah. If you've got that mentality, we're talking like the Unabomber, you know? Could the Unabomber do this? I don't think even him. And he was very coherent. He was very smart. I don't think he would be the Unabomber.
Oh, the Unabomber.
I don't think he could pull that off.
Well,
yeah.
It's been proven that serial killers have something in them that messes with their brain, but they're still highly intelligent.
Well, that's why I brought up the Unabomber, because that guy was very smart, but he was unhinged, and there are certain things, like certain details that would flip your mind, and that's how you get caught.
But if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're able to survive, and you've learned how to survive in that environment, and you've learned how to, quote unquote, hunt, it wouldn't be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess.
So,
I don't know. I mean, yeah, if you have a certain personality type, if someone who's really methodical,
you would have to be. I mean,
they're not all like that.
You would have to be. It's, I watched the show Dexter, which is about a serial killer who's very methodical, who learns all his stuff from his adoptive cop father. But he still made mistakes. But it was also for entertainment show. But
that's the thing.
It just shows that people can be that methodical and get away with it. Something else, my dad is a helicopter pilot, or was a helicopter pilot for the Army National Guard here in Arizona. And he's gone on probably 5 or 6 search and rescue missions every year. He would, of course, be the pilot of a helicopter. And there's something that I found interesting is basically all they would do is determine what altitude they could be at so they could see things, but still be high enough to cover the correct amount of area in the correct amount of time. Helicopters are probably a slower option than airplanes, because you could slow a helicopter down to 70 miles an hour and do a grid search and be able to do a tight search. And you generally would have two pilots, the pilot and the co-pilot, and then two spotters. But when you're in kind of a foresty, wooded area, it's very difficult to see anything. And something that he said to me that was interesting is, if somebody doesn't want to be found, they will hide and you won't find them. I found that very interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's real easy to disappear in
Okay.
the vast unknown.
He told me of a story of a couple of younger boys. I don't remember. They had to be at least over 16. And this was many years ago. They took a four-wheel drive vehicle out to the area that's between, the highway you can go on to get to Wickenburg from the I-17 that goes by Lake Pleasant.
I haven't been up that way.
Not at the top
It's
of my
kind
head,
of a way I go to
but
Vegas all the
yeah,
time.
it's fine.
It's not Wickenburg. Yeah, is it Wickenburg over there? It goes right by Lake. It's how you get to Lake Pleasant.
Okay.
What highway is this? No,
We're not
74.
talking about like State Road 89, are we?
State Route 74.
74, okay.
Back 30, 40 years ago, there's not a lot out there. But they had gone on that road and they had turned north, and their vehicle broke down. There was two of them. And here's kind of what's interesting. Sorry, my dog is barking. Hope you can't hear that. My dad was out looking for them. They found the vehicle right away. It was there. And they were actually able to land by it, and they actually discovered food inside the vehicle. And you could see the main road from where the vehicle was parked. One of the gentlemen was found actually south of that road. So they had walked down past the road and was in a culvert trying to stay warm. The other guy walked east towards Lake Pleasant and was never found.
Oh, no.
He
The one
was
who was
alive,
trying to
yes.
stay warm,
They
was
found
he
him
alive?
alive. They found him
Okay.
a day later, like 24 hours later, or somewhere in that time frame. So they had actually, and he said they decided they were going to walk back, but they couldn't agree on the direction, so they split up. And he walked back towards the road, and the other guy walked east, and that was just one of the stories he told from search and rescue.
How did they miss the major freeway? How did they miss that, though?
They could see
You
it
said
from the
they
car.
could see
I
it
don't
from the
know how
car.
you would miss that.
That's crazy.
Back in the
Yeah.
day, it probably wasn't as highly traveled of a road, and it could have been nighttime when they kind of went by it, and maybe they found a culvert to go underneath it and didn't realize that was the road. I don't know. I mean, you can get kind of incoherent when you don't have food, you don't have water.
But again,
They had food in the car,
right?
and there was a water tank right by where the car was parked for cattle. So if they would have
So
stayed
I'm not
with
going to
the
go with
car,
they
they
were
would have had
hungry.
food and water, and they would have survived, and they would have been found fairly quickly.
Yeah. So what was
Exactly.
happening in their brains? Why did they make that decision? That's
you
crazy.
break down.
They ate the wrong cactus.
It's the wrong cactus. I like that. So
I don't get the reference.
Peyote or San Pedro. It's got full of mescaline.
yeah, yeah.
I did not realize that those came from cactuses. So, yeah. I mean, it could. I just think abduction is a possibility. A lot of times, like for these kids that go missing, searchers believe it was a big cat that did it. So I actually watched a big cat documentary and to see what is the behavior of these creatures. And okay, yeah, for these small kids, I could see it. But then, so There's the case of Jared Adadero. He's 3 years old. He, I watched... Oh, I didn't take a lot of notes on that one, but that's okay. So his dad joined like some kind of Christian adventure group or something. Like his dad was single, had sole custody, joined this Christian like adventure group that's supposed to be like a way for him to like mingle and meet other singles. And he trusted them. So he let them, this group, take his 3-year-old. I forget what he was doing. There was some reason why he couldn't go. And he said, okay, but I want you to just go to this one place. And if you end up deciding you want to go somewhere else, bring him back. I don't want him going anywhere except for this one place. Well, turns out, for whatever reason, they decided to site hop. So they went from the initial place where they told his dad they were going to be, and then ended up going someplace else that was actually a lot more rugged and had higher elevations. And he's with this big group. And I think, was his the one? Unfortunately, I didn't take a lot of notes, which is weird. There was a scream or something, but it sounded like a playful scream. Like, they couldn't really tell the difference between, is this little kid play screaming or what's happening? And then he was just gone. Like, they realized that he was just gone. Eventually, like, for 3.5 years, there's no evidence. They hadn't found anything. But eventually, they did find him, and he was 550 feet above the point of where he went missing as far as elevation. That's not distance, that's just like elevation. A couple of miles. And their thought was a mountain lion took him, buried him, and then left because of all of the search and rescue activity, and then eventually came back. And that maybe, okay. But like, they found Jared's clothes inside out without damage. Like, the most damage that those clothes had was, they could tell, was from birds and rodents taking little pieces to make nests out of. And they did end up finding some of his clothing in nearby nests, like the little scraps that were taken. But, like, if a big cat took him, wouldn't there be some DNA or some other evidence, saliva, something, from the big cat that took him? His shoes were eventually found in just absolutely perfect, pristine white condition. They weren't dirty. They weren't yellowed with age. The pants were inside out, and again, they weren't damaged. And what was found of him was a part of his skull and a tooth. And Dad has kept those and has had multiple tests done. Anything that he can think of that's new and different to try and get answers for what it was that happened to his son. So that's... I could see a big cat, but like not all the details added up in this case. Like how did a big cat remove his clothing without damaging?
I mean, that one could have been
perfectly
a series of things. Maybe the big cat just found a body.
Maybe he had. Someone said maybe he went to go poop and took off his clothes and then was found kind of in that state. But I don't know because everything was found kind of together. Like in the same general area.
I'm thinking like maybe he was attacked by a person, left for dead, and then a big cat found him.
Yeah, maybe.
Had a quick snack.
Which is really sad to think about. I wanted to talk about this thing with the fever. And I had a couple stories that had people who ended up with fevers, but I didn't highlight them, and I'm really sad about that now. But there was at least one story where she was found, and it was freezing. It was a little girl. It was very, very cold out, and she had a fever of like greater than 100 degrees. It was like 101 point something degrees. And the rationale for this child having a fever in the middle of the freezing woods was, well, it's just from exposure. She just had a fever from exposure. That's not how fevers work. I just want to say that. Like, there's really like 3 reasons why a person would have a fever. One of them is because your immune response is activated. And I wonder a little bit about this. Like, if you were exposed to something that you'd never been exposed to before, and your immune system is activated, then a lot of times you'll have a fever to combat that pathogen, whatever it was that's in your body now. Another reason why a person might have a fever is because they actually got overheated. They're out in the middle of the summer heat somewhere, and they get really hot, and they get a fever from that. And that usually goes along with dehydration. The third reason a person might get a fever, we call them neurofevers. when I worked at the ICU, we had them sometimes, and this was like really significant head trauma. These people's brains would no longer be able to like regulate the body's temperature. So these people would have fevers that went all over the place, like crazy high, and then would end up being crazy cold. So those are like the 3 reasons why a person might have a fever. So like, why would a person who's in the middle of the cold in the forest end up with a fever when she had been out there for several days? So at that point, her body temperature she should have been hypothermic. So that's curious for me, and it makes me wonder if this is like the non-human option. Are they being exposed to a pathogen that some other mammal maybe is colonized with, that humans don't have a lot of exposure to? Like, is that why people are getting fevers? Is that a possibility?
That's actually,
Does that make sense?
That's pretty strong.
That makes a lot of sense.
But by exposure, do they mean like sun exposure? That wouldn't cause a fever, though, would it?
No, they're just saying, well, she was out in the elements for a good long time and it made her have a fever. Like, that's what they said in this particular story. And David Paulides made a note, like, wait a minute, is that how fevers work? That was the question he asked. I was like, no, David, that's not how fevers work. Let me tell you. So I wish I had exactly which story it was, but she had been out in the woods missing for several days, and it was very cold. She should have been hypothermic, but instead she had a fever, and their excuse was, well, it's just from exposure.
Let me ask this question.
Exposure to what?
If you have allergies, can allergies create a fever? Or does it have to be a pathogen of some sort?
I've never heard of an allergy causing a fever, except...
Can cause swelling.
Yeah, there is something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and that is for a specific medication, and I think they do maybe get a fever, but it's a very, very, very extreme reaction. Let me look it up real quick. But basically, they're so allergic to the medication that they turn bright red. That's like the first sign. They may or may not get a fever. I can't recall. And then after a while, their skin basically starts to fall off. It's horrible. I've seen it once. It's horrible. I don't even know how people survive it. Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Let's look it up real quick. But that's the only time I've heard of where
an allergy would
potentially cause that kind of reaction. But that's an extremely, very rare and very extreme. But like hay fever, no, that wouldn't cause you to have a fever. Stevens-Johnson. Yep.
Okay.
Symptoms include fever.
It's
the first one.
Went camping with a girl once.
But there's
we
also
were up on the rim, and it was cold. It was windy and cold, and she got feelings of being sick, ill, had to lay down, sick to her stomach, because she said she was allergic to the cold. I don't know.
Interesting. There is a thing where people, but it's the opposite. They're actually really, really sensitive to cold. It makes their fingers turn purple and stuff. But it's Raynaud's, I think, is what that one is. But it's not what she's describing. I mean, she could have. What can happen is, like, say you're out in the elements and you do get cold. I mean, maybe this is explaining away my whole hypothesis, but you get cold or whatever, your body enters into like a really stressed out state, so your immune system is weak. Anything that you were fighting prior to going out into the woods could then become like a full-fledged like infection that your body would then respond to. But like,
it wouldn't just be the elements themselves.
No, and I don't think that you'd be able, like, a person would maintain a crazy fever, like, not for long. Like, the cold would counteract the fever. That's what we do. When people have fevers, we pack them up with ice and cool their whole body down. So I just don't see how that could happen. In JT, it's called cold urticaria. It's a skin reaction to cold that appears within minutes after cold exposure. The skin develops itchy welts and hives.
Okay.
People with that particular illness experience widely different symptoms.
Okay.
But fever is not among the symptoms.
That's weird.
That's listed here. At least that's listed
Fevers.
here.
I mean, It's possible, too, that these people could pick up a pathogen on a spaceship.
War of the
Yes.
Worlds,
Right?
but in reverse.
That's what we're talking about here, isn't it? So what do you guys think? We've read several stories. We've talked about the data points. What do you guys
I
think is
don't
going
think
on with these
aliens.
people?
If anything,
Why not?
if
Wait a minute. Why
I don't
not
think
aliens?
flying saucer aliens. I think if we're
Okay.
gonna say like aliens, I'm thinking more like Skinwalker Ranch style.
Yeah. My view of that has changed as well. I used to
Interdimensional
think,
creatures?
oh, yeah, these are alien abductions, and they're bringing them back, and they're finding them, weird places later, like this 11-year or 12-year-old boy that traveled 100 miles. I'm thinking it's more portals, more portal type
Yeah.
situation. People can create a portal, jump in, snatch you, and you're gone without a trace. And then they can bring you back. That, to me, with the onset of the technology of the day, I think we're finding more and more that that's more of the case of this interdimensional travel. I agree with Cameron there.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you think it's like an intelligent thing?
I mean, it goes along the line
Okay.
of, there's a lot of theories out there
Interesting.
of, how the human race was started, that the Garden of Eden, that would be located somewhere over in Iraq. I believe that's kind of the area, that area, Iran, Iraq, somewhere in that area, that it was a, alien breeding ground. And it was just a species trying to propagate themselves or keep themselves continuously by creating a new race of people. And that's how we were created. There's a movie about that mission to Mars with Gary Sinise that...
There was this story about a Chinese citizen that would go to sleep and he would see these Chinese officials that would sort of lead him around. And more than once he found himself in like a top secret military base.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So the story goes back in 1980s, exactly a year. That the exact year is a little bit fuzzy, but apparently this is kind of like an urban legend. But they do have like some documentation for it. In the Yunnan province, this guy was living a normal life, and one day he vanishes into thin air while he was sleeping. And then he appears like a day later, and he has this wild story about this dream he had. And he, according to him, he was only gone for like 5 minutes, but he had been gone for like a day, and to the point where she had started the whole process of reporting him missing. And so let's see. He walked down a street only to find out that he was miles away in a field. And he found his way back home. And nobody could really explain how he got there. And then there was a more dramatic instance where he reappeared, because this happened more than once, several days later in another province, hundreds of miles away. And he had made it to like this Chinese military base. And by the time they found him, right, so he passed several different checks. By the time the military base was aware of him there, he was going into the general's office, because that's where the two officials brought him. Those two officials disappeared, and he was just in the general's office. And the guy's like, "How did you get here?" Like, "What do you mean? They brought me." "Who?" I don't, what? So extensive background checks. They found out he wasn't a threat. They had no idea how he got there. And he told his story, and they're like, "Well, whatever." He didn't see anything, so they let him go. And they continued to document his situation.
Suspicious.
And after the military base incident, he never really disappeared again. Yeah, in China.
This is China? What year?
This was around the 1980s.
It surprises me that they just let him
especially
go.
back then.
If that really happened.
Yunnan province.
The Chinese, yeah, they're not real forgiving about military secrets.
He didn't see any military secrets. As far as they know, he could have been lying about what he was doing there, but
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't
I'm surprised he didn't just continue missing after that.
Honest. Yes. Exactly.
There's something else that I found interesting
him
when I was over at your house the other day, Amanda, was the thing you pointed out about the locations of these disappearances.
Yes. That's the next thing I wanted to talk about. In your book, yours is a lot more current than mine. Is that gap still there?
Because we were talking about South Dakota, because I'd just been in South Dakota.
So Cameron.
There's no disappearances in South Dakota here.
Right. So Cameron, in case you didn't know this, in my book, mine is the first one he ever wrote. So I expected for this map to change. But there's a map at the front, and when you look at it, there is all kinds of disappearances to the east and to the west of the United States. But right smack in the middle of the country, there's just a big gap. Like Texas has disappearances, and he, I guess, wrote a separate book for Texas. But north of Texas,
Oklahoma,
and so like Dakotas,
Kansas,
both of the Dakotas, Oklahoma, what is that, Kansas? There's nothing. No disappearances.
No, just that there's this huge gap. I mean, it is a lot of the plains area of the United States, so it makes sense. But even where I was at in South Dakota, I would be surprised if there wasn't any mysterious disappearances, because it is a very mountainous region on that side of the state. But no disappearances.
That's so weird. That made me think, like, I'm actually kind of sort of with you guys. I think portal, I think wormhole. Like, I wonder about, like, last time for Skinwalker Ranch, we talked about these portals being, the math is not settled. We can't really prove that they exist because we don't know what imaginary numbers, how they behave or what they look like in real life, right? So the thought is that if there is such a thing as a wormhole, that it's extremely unstable and it behaves really weird and erratically. It made me wonder, like, there's one story in particular. This was in Montana. A 30-year-old hunter by the name of Aaron Joseph Hedges disappeared in September 3rd of 2014. He was actually with some friends, and they had what they called a horse wreck. So they were on the way to the campsite, and the horse had an accident, and it ruined a bunch of his stuff, like sleeping bags, some food, whatever. One of those campers has a cache kind of up the mountain where, like, he's kept certain supplies and stuff to, like, fill in any gaps. So Aaron is like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go. So he hikes up there, and he's got GPS on him. He's got a sat phone on him. He's got camping gear. He's got a big old bag. He's got a bow. He's got a pistol. He's got food and water. He's got all the things that he needs. Somehow or other misses the turn, which is a very obvious turn. This is on one of the movies. And then 2 days later, there's a big snowstorm, and that's when his friends are like, hey, he's missing in the mountains. He never came back. He should have come back, and now there's a storm. We need to go get him. So really highly rated search and rescue pros are out there. So we've got people who have something called a SARTEC 2 rating. So they are, like, nationally accredited. They've tested. They're certified search and rescue guys running the show. This is another one where there were no dog hits. The dogs couldn't catch a trace of him. A year later, in a place where they'd already searched, they find his orange vest and his backpack that had snack bars inside of it, gun, and bows. Oh, I apologize. Prior to this, they did find his boots. On September 9th, they found his boots, which was 6 miles away from where he started. So he took his boots off. He had a couple of other little things kind of there. It looks like he had started a campfire, and then he was just gone. So then a year later, 6 more miles away from that spot, they find his vest, his backpack with snacks inside, his gun, and his bow nearby. and it was on somebody's ranch, and he was actually, that backpack, all of those things that they found were within a few hundred feet of the homestead. Like, he would have been right there able to go get help if he needed it, because he would have been able to see their home from where this backpack was. If he made it that far, why didn't he go get help? Well, then another year later, they find his skull and some other remains, pelvis, femur, not feet, his cell phone, jacket, for a grand total of 11 miles away from where he started, and like way farther north from where his backpack and stuff was found. So it makes me wonder, my thought was, if we have, maybe this guy, he wanders into some kind of wormhole or something, and maybe that's the reason why there's a big, huge stretch of country where these things don't happen, because it has something to do with the rocks. It has something to do with the geology. It has something to do with something in the soil that actually makes it possible, that is like a conductor for the energy required to create these wormholes. What if he sort of walked into a wormhole and that singular event existed in multiple spaces and multiple times, you know? Like, it was one event, but because of the nature of the wormhole, his backpack shows up 6 miles away a year later. His body shows up another 6 miles in a different direction, and some of his other stuff, you know, like, but what if for him it was a single event that occurred at a single, like, for his brain in one day, but for the sake of the wormhole, it spanned all of this space and all of this time, and that's why all of this stuff started showing up.
But
within
for
years
him,
of
it
each
was
other.
all at once. I see what you're saying.
For him, it happened all at once. But for us on the outside, this is coming across. We're
just
finding
getting
the evidence
breadcrumbs.
over
Yeah,
years.
Okay.
Right. So, like, it sort of, like, exploded all of his stuff out across the region where this, you know,
So
wormhole
for the boots,
thing, this event,
they had dropped there within
existed.
the time of a few seconds. We found it a couple of days later. And then same couple of seconds passed for his body, but more time has passed. Yeah.
We find it 2 years later. The backpack was a year after the boots. So, like, I wonder what they'll find in another
Find a watch with the
year
same
or
time
two.
as when he went missing.
Mm-hmm. And he had everything. He had food. He had water. He had a gun. He had his bow. And that was something that the homeowner said. They said, you know, if he'd been wandering around for 6-7 miles over the course of several days, why would he still have held on to that bow? Wouldn't he have dropped it? That's heavy. Wouldn't he have just let that go after some point? And he had water. It was clear that, like, his thermos was up with the lid off, and it looked like maybe he'd stopped to take a drink. How did that happen? And if he was there and he needed help, why didn't he come get it? We were literally just a few hundred feet away. And in all that time, why did it take them a full year to find that backpack that was only a few hundred feet away? That one, that's what I think it is. I don't know that it's necessarily intelligent, to be honest. Maybe there's creatures that exist there, these large, dark mammals that kind of thrive in those areas that like to take kids for some reason, and who knows why. I don't know, but I think in some of these cases, I wonder if it's just an event of nature, an act of God, and not something intelligent.
Quick question. In your talks of Bigfoot, is Bigfoot intelligent like us, or more intelligent like a very smart bear?
I think so.
I think it's a more intelligent bear. Yes.
Oh. Yeah, especially when we talked about the orang pendek, Cameron found this really cool story, and a man actually married this creature, an orang, what we think is an orang pendek, and they had children. She was never really, she had a language, but it wasn't the same as ours. And when the kids were born, there were certain things that they just couldn't wrap their minds around. Like, they were just, I don't know. So I think it depends. I think some of them are probably very, I think that there's different types, honestly. I think there's a lot of different species of them, and I think some of them can be as intelligent as humans, and I wonder that others are just...
There's I don't know if you've heard of the Christian theory of Bigfoot.
No, I'd love to hear that.
In the Bible, there's the story of Cain and Abel, and Cain and Abel had children, and And in one of the stories that I've heard in my religious time here on the earth, that Cain was cursed to walk the earth forever.
Oh.
Basically became immortal. And that is the Bigfoot. He basically became Bigfoot, and he wanders the earth.
That's crazy.
And he's hairy and big and would be fully able to reproduce, and would make sense that he could have a whole family, and some of those family members could be some of the savage style of Bigfoots, because he probably turned pretty savage after killing his brother. I don't know, but it's just a story. But that's one of the theories that I've heard.
That's interesting.
On Bigfoot. So, a lot of these disappearances could be something like that, because honestly, Bigfoot would be smart enough to keep himself hidden for a long time.
Evade detection. I've wondered, in some of these stories that specifically cite a large hairy mammal, a large dark mammal, let's say for the sake of argument it is Bigfoot, why are they taking kids? And maybe some of these ones are found with fevers because they're not compatible. Maybe there's some compatibility that the Bigfoot's looking for, and the fever is an indication, oh, this one's not compatible. I need to let this one go. But maybe there's some need for extra genetic material. Like if these are small clans that live in small mountainsides and there's not very many of them, maybe just periodically, they got to go get people to help contribute to the gene pool as they grow up and age.
Sort of like what they think happened to the Neanderthals.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's something I think about sometimes.
It makes sense. And how that makes sense to me is in the lake business, I would want to make sure that I stock fish so that the fish have a fresher set of DNA mixing into the lake, so you don't have the same DNA in the lake as they reproduce. You want to make sure you introduce a fresher set of DNA, so you want to also make sure you know where your fish are coming from, which hatcheries are coming from, so it's a different strain of DNA.
So they're not all related. Because it makes them stronger, doesn't it? It helps produce, what do they call it? Robust genetics and robust immune systems, and they do better. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much it for me. I definitely believe something weird is going on. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to...
I mean, I never thought that we were going to crack the mystery of the 411, but I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to cover.
There's so many books.
We scraped the top pretty well.
We scraped the top.
Well, murderers, I hope you enjoyed our dive into the missing 411 and kind of getting our feet wet with that one. I thought that was really interesting. I enjoyed the research part of that. I don't know about you guys.
I did.
Yeah.
Join us next time. We're going to look into strange teleportation stories. Yeah. And so, this has been another episode of
The
Wandering Crow. Good enough.